Let's get to the reason we're all here tonight. Alex Danilowicz, CEO and co-founder of Magic Patterns. I'm really excited to have him here in person. He lives in Monterrey, Mexico, and he happens to be in town, so we coordinated this. He extended his stay to be with us today, so thank you very much. Many of you are familiar with Magic Patterns because we use them in all of our hackathons that we've been doing. It's a great product, and obviously his startup went through Y Combinator, so I'm excited to have Alex here, and we're going to be chatting about the future of vibe coding. Join me in giving a warm welcome to Alex. All right. There you go, bud.
Thank you. Yeah,
welcome.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. It's great. Thanks for making it work out. That's awesome. All right. So you just had a big announcement 2 days ago. Why don't we just cover that for people that don't know? What did you announce on Tuesday?
Oh, yes. Thanks. So 2 days ago, we announced our Series A fundraise in Magic Patterns 2.0, which is very exciting. This was not coordinated, by the way, with this meetup. So you get the... now this old sweater and this old logo is a collector's item, but yeah, very exciting for us, and did a video and everything, so you can check it out on LinkedIn.
Nice. All right, cool. Woo. I think it's a testament to the progress that you guys have made. So that's I wasn't surprised to hear about. So that's awesome. So why don't we start out and go back and tell people, why don't we tell them a little bit about how long you've been around, how you started, because you didn't start with this initial vision, I don't think, right?
No, so we started in 2023. January 2023, we did Y Combinator here in Mountain View, one of the startup accelerators. We actually applied with like a silly consumer idea, like text message analytics. Like that was our YC application. And we got in and they gave great advice, which was, this is the silliest idea I've ever heard in my entire life. You should do something that you know really well. And so for us, that was design tooling. We had worked as front-end engineers at Robinhood and a company in downtown SF.
Nice. And so then what happened? Yeah.
Yeah, so we spent pretty much our whole Y Combinator experience pivoting in design tooling, where we tried Figma to code, we tried design token management, basically like managing all your hex colors across your entire app, or managing, the spacing and the layout and things like that. And we were struggling. Like, it was really hard trying to find kind of product market fit with those products. And so 6 months after YC, we had an internal hackathon, my co-founder and I, where I messed around with this new thing called GPT-3.5. Like, for context, I think folks kind of forget in 2023, like, AI was not that popular. During my YC batch, actually, a lot of people were comparing it to crypto.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah. They were like, it's just a fad. Like, oh, all those AI companies, like, you're just doing the next fad, right? And so, yeah, we had an internal hackathon where my co-founder basically created a component library catalog, and then I messed around with GPT-3.5, one of the AI models at the time, to try and generate user interfaces on the fly, right? That was the initial idea.
Super cool. Awesome. All right, cool. Well, so I had the spectrum up there, and I put Magic Patterns in what I call the designer-friendly column, the less technical UI browser UI, non-technical with Figma Make. And then the next column over is Bolt and Lovable. How do you distinguish Magic Patterns from all the other ones in that column and Bolt and Lovable, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. So we're very focused on product management use cases, and lots of designers use us as well. One important thing to note about Magic Patterns is, because of our early pivots in design tooling, we have a great focus on importing your existing styles, using your component library, and actually all we do is generate front-end code, which we can talk more about right? Versus Bolt and Lovable, great for internal tooling, adding a database, things like that.
Got it. Okay. So just to be really clear, you've deliberately stayed front-end only, it sounds like.
Deliberately, yeah, since the beginning. I think maybe it's just in our blood.
Okay, no, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting because those tools you can do front end only. Since Lovable launched Lovable Cloud, they will inevitably say like, "Hey, do you want the cloud? Hey, accept here." Click. I've seen it in the hackathons, right? So if there's something that warrants it, they'll prompt you to add it, I guess. But I've actually, so this is something. Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of hackathons and all this jazz. I prefer to vibe code front end only first.
Right. So we see a lot of customers actually, they'll use Magic Patterns and then maybe also Lovable and Bolt, right? But especially at larger companies, we generally see for product leaders that
Right.
need to share or visually communicate with the stakeholder, they're using magic patterns because they don't need lovable cloud.
Right. Got it. Okay. Are you seeing it mainly and actually one of my newest slides is recognizing that there's different audiences for these vibe prototypes. And I think the first audience is you as the creator. You're like, oh, that's not how I want it to look, right? And you iterate it. And then perhaps the next circle is your team, like your near team, like your designer, your developer or whatever. And then the next one would be like stakeholders or people in the company. And the final one would be customers. So I'm just curious, you just mentioned stakeholder feedback. So is it more you see people using it more for internal stakeholder feedback or more for external customer feedback? Or
we do see both. We do see, one time I had a customer call me because they were at their customer's office showing a magic patterns link, and they thought our app was down. It was not. It was because it was blocked on their Wi-Fi.
I see.
But that's okay. Classic AI tooling, But I use that example to share, like, people are definitely using these visual mock-ups to share with customers, but also internal.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense. It's like the internal piece is so we all get on the same page, right? And then we go external to get validation. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, the other thing is, having followed you in Magic Patterns for a bit and followed Bolt and Lovable and some of these other companies, it seems like some of the other companies are just like swinging for the fences, product-led growth, pouring gas on the fire, going as fast as they can. I get the sense from Magic Patterns that's not your MO or philosophy.
We've stayed very lean, and we grew profitably for a long time now. We're just putting some with Magic, with the rebrand, putting some gas on the fire and everything. So I appreciate the question. But one thing that we learned, right? I worked as an early employee at another startup, learning the importance of customer obsession, building a high quality product, and then growing and scaling when the time is right. And
I think several times we've talked, you said, well, we're doing things that don't scale on purpose. And I think one of those was, didn't you like email every customer in the early days? Can you tell us about what you would do?
So in the early days, like the first couple customers, maybe like up to 1,000, we would get a Slack alert. We use Slack of every single customer that ever subscribed. And I would personally email them a very personalized hook. I'd look them up on LinkedIn, exactly who they were, trying to get them on a call. It was a special moment when I finally had to mute the Slack channel because we couldn't keep up with it anymore. But it's great because a lot of those people have like become my friends, or like I'm on a texting basis with, right? And they were early users of the product.
Nice. Cool. Okay, great. And a couple of things. So let's talk about, there's a few things I just want to talk about, like what. Well, let's do this. So you mentioned one thing that's separate, why you're different, is your front end only. But I guess asked another way is like, what unique capabilities or features does Magic Pattern have that other people don't have?
Right. So right now, the biggest one is using your component library. Okay. So, and for folks, for context, right, this is very popular at larger companies where you have your core button component, your input, your nav bar, right? How do you reuse those components, reuse them across all of your prototypes, and having that existing context?
Just making sure the slider works. That's also
Please submit some questions. No. And so what we do is allow you to import your component library from Figma or Storybook, and then reuse those across your designs.
Okay. Cool.
There's a couple other things, of course, but yeah.
Well, one of the ones that I like. So the funny thing is, I've run several big hackathons. I run all these workshops, and we always use multiple tools. And people put the same prompt in these different tools, and they get completely different UIs. Not surprisingly, I call it the rolling the dice. And of course, they inevitably like one of the designs more than the others. And so it makes me, from my workflow, I'm like, gosh, you should be doing divergent design at the beginning to figure out what workflow you want. And you guys have a very awesome but hidden feature called inspiration. You want to tell people about that?
Yeah. So one thing we do, and it's interesting. We were, I think, one of the first to add it. Not that really matters, but I've seen other tools add this feature as well. This concept of commands, where you can do a backslash, and that's basically prompting for you, right? So you could do like backslash discuss, and that under the hood is prompting. Don't generate me any code. Like, just let me talk to you for a second. Talking to the AI model. And so then we have a command called /inspiration, where it gives you 4 variations of that, whatever you prompted, right? So if you do make it red, right, it might give you 4 different shades of red.
Yeah, no, I love it, because I think Because what I've learned, my general mental model is like, once you go down a path with vibe coding, you can change it like 5, 10, 15 degrees. But if you need to take like a hard left or hard right, you're not going to be able to move that code over. You're better off starting from scratch, right?
Totally. Well, I think that's actually one of the advantages and one of the reasons we believe in being front end focused is at any point in time on Magic Patterns, you can just go back to another version and it's instantaneous because you're not dealing with a database and having to do a database migration. And does the user exist that you created and all of that? There's no like persistence, which I think leads to really fast, exactly what you're saying, branching off, going to different variations.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And you guys had version history for a long time. So yeah, that's good. Okay. And then the other thing that you guys have that I don't think many other people have is you have a browser extension, right?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a browser extension where it's funny. I think maybe we released it a little too early because it's great seeing all the other tools now add one where you can select a section from any website and import it into Magic Patterns, right? I think there's this big problem in this space right now with all the tools and something we're always actively trying to solve, which is how do I get my existing styling context in there, right? If I work at Intuit, I work at TurboTax, there's already all these dashboards that exist, but how do I get that into a tool like Magic Patterns to prototype and iterate on?
Got it. Yeah. And so let's talk about that. So, because I've seen people that don't know anything about coding or vibe coding, and they put in their product brief that I guide them to do, and then 10 minutes into it, they're like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't our brand pattern. This isn't our brand color. So, and so it's fine. You have to learn by iterating, right? So then they start realizing, how can I do it? So what if somebody, and in general, to generalize that further, it's like, how can I close the gap between what I'm prototyping and what like the production code is? But let's just focus on the visuals for a bit. So what can somebody do so that it's like, hey, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not deviating from our style guide. I'm actually using our style guide. What can people do to start out that way?
Totally. And this is advice for any tool, but really it's thinking about like, what is the default prompt, right? What are the rules that you want to include in your every single generation that you do, right? So if you're going to type a dashboard for managing my sales orders, well, what are we going to apply to every single prototype that you do, right? Which is, I always like to say, what's the primary color? What's the secondary color? What's the font that you have? And then, of course, you can take that a step further with ingesting your components and using the core building blocks. We call them Lego bricks.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And so that's kind of like what most people would call project settings, it sounds like. Is that like?
Yeah. And in our tool, it's called like a preset. We call it a design preset.
Design preset.
And it's so funny to me. It's like, if you prompt, let's pretend you work at TurboTax. We all know it's red.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny if you type like a tax dashboard, maybe the AI by default might give you something purple, right? Or blue, right? And it's so funny to me that if you just were to prompt it tax dashboard in the style of TurboTax or tax dashboard red, and then suddenly like there's less cognitive dissonance, right?
Yeah. I think purple's the Claude code giveaway. Is that right? Is it another purple in Claude code?
Yeah, exactly.
It likes that color.
AI loves purple for some reason,
there you go.
And so you have to think about what is the context that I'm providing to the AI at all given moments to ensure I'm getting the output that I want, right? And that's why like on our tool, the default prompt, the preset is so important.
Got it. What percentage of people would you say roughly use the presets?
Oh man, I mean, there's like tens of thousands that are being created. Okay, but that's a good question.
I was curious because, like, one of my hackathons, we always start out the service level, so we don't really write.
Well, it's
different.
It's a great call. It's like I'd say on the larger teams, they're 100%. If you are at a large organization, you are using a preset. You are using the component library. Yeah. What I will say has been very interesting learning for us, and I think for maybe everybody in the room is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? Where you can just kind of use the default system, get what you need, react to the AI output, and then use it. And then you can go and later maybe touch it up, right? Like there's no need to be overwhelmed by all the settings and things like that. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think as a natural learning curve, like I saw, first time people just didn't even think about, we should match the color, and they do it, right? Exactly. So, okay, cool. So you can do that. And so, when I run my private things, it's like, okay, how does someone have their current design system or style guide represented? Some people have it in Figma, or maybe it starts in Figma, but then like at one of my workshops, someone had exported it as like a color palette. One part of it was the color palette. One part of it was the fonts as a static image. So you can like say, okay, let's grab these static images. And that will at least match the visual design. But then it seems like the next level of maturity is, hey, like you were saying, we've got these components. So like some companies have actually bought into having design system, bought into having reusable components, have gone to the trouble of creating these things in a centralized manner. And so how can we, if somebody wants to go to that level, how can they do that?
Yeah, so like on our tool, we have import from Figma, which we can talk about why that's not perfect sometimes, and a screenshot is better. And the technical reasons there, and we also have the Chrome extension, as we were talking about, to import the components. It's a very interesting problem, right? Because these AI models are so good at outputting vanilla kind of code, React code under the hood. And it's very challenging where, let's say your components exist in a different data format, like in Figma, or maybe in Storybook, it's your custom code path, code base, like those nuances, right, of how you import it. Maybe it's a special proprietary component library that's not even public, that the AI has no idea what it is, right? That's very hard to import. So
got it. Okay. And I know that right now you can do one component at a time, right?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what I've been surprised by is the higher than I expected percentage of people that I talk to in my private workshops where they're like, we actually have a really robust design system, Dan, and it's in Storybook. And so someone has put the time in to actually document and have a repository all in one place of their component library. And I know today that you can do it one by one. I'm thinking ahead, like, is there a way that they can do it all at once or not? And so given that everyone's using Storybook for, I know we talked a little bit about it, but what's the vision? Do you see a path or a vision of how we might be able, instead of having to do it one by one, and which people are willing to do? I went to one workshop and one designer went and did over 100 components one by one just to get them in Magic Patterns. But
and the reason they do that is that's because it's so important to them to be able to use those components where their whole team is using the button and the nav bar and everything, right? Like that's how crucial it is at these large enterprises. But I'll say that, it's on our roadmap absolutely to do bulk import. And I'm very bullish on Storybook in general as a tool where it's your components, but they live in code.
Exactly.
And these AI models know how to use code really well. And so the challenging part that all the tools in the space, like our own company, is figuring out is, okay, well, how can I teach the AI model to actually use those components?
I see. Right.
Versus right now, like what works super well is you take a screenshot from Storybook. So
then it writes it in our
vanilla
format that you want. You know it's going to work. Okay, got it. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is a problem that all the tools have, right? Is like the AI knows how to produce React code really well.
Got it. So interestingly, so when you use the extension to do a screenshot, it's not taking the HTML and the DOM exactly as it is. It's redoing it in your vanilla version, it sounds like?
Okay, so in the case of the extension, it actually is grabbing the raw HTML code and the styles, because another thing, kind of pro tip to everybody, no matter what tool you're using, is these AI models love text. So if you give it text, it can do great things with it. So in this case, we're like giving it the raw HTML. But what's challenging is then converting that to, in our case, it's like vanilla React code and making sure that it renders everything.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right. Well, and someone asked a question, so I'm going to pivot to that, which is sometimes people's designs or often are in Figma, and there's Figma Make, and so someone's just kind of saying, hey, what are the key differences between Magic Patterns and Figma Make?
Yeah, so right now, Figma Make's an amazing product. Right now, we are code first, right? Where Figma Make is like a secondary product on top of the existing Figma design tool. And kind of as we were just discussing, it's challenging converting. Figma Make has the same issues as we all do, right? Which is converting those Figma nodes, their proprietary data model and their core design tool to code, right? And then some other differences are just, more features, right? We have a canvas, we have commands, we have import from any site. We've just simply been around a bit longer.
Got it. So let's just I think that it's some people looking at a Figma board might go, gosh, why can't we just import this? Like look at it, it's pixels. It's like CSS. Like, why can't we? And so we had an interesting discussion earlier about the fundamental tech foundations of why. Or maybe we just cover that real quick. Like, what is it about? Why is it not so easy to just take that Figma design as is?
Yeah, so I mean, Figma, the design tool that we know and love, is such an amazing product because they have their own internal data model, right? I like to call it a fancy rectangle.
Okay.
But it's really called a Figma node under the hood.
Okay.
But it's special. Like AI models don't know Figma nodes very well. They don't have that in their training data.
Sure.
Right. And so also what makes the Figma node, the fancy rectangle, so powerful is it allows for the ability to easily drag and drop.
Right.
With raw code, it's not as easy technically to like raw drag and drop code because you have to kind of map it. So it's just been interesting. Like I think Figma also internally realized, oh, okay, these AI models are really good at producing code, but not like our own internal data model. And that's why something like Figma Make exists. And that's why our product exists.
Got it. Makes sense. So all the LLMs are obviously trained in text. And you've got this thing that looks like an image, and we know that a lot of these things can input an image, but the data model underneath is like a proprietary Figma node data model that.
Yeah, and there's some documentation on it. Like you can look at it. That way it's a stretch to call it exactly proprietary, but it's simply not the case.
It's different.
It's simply not the case that these AI models know how to leverage that very well. And it's very clear like Figma has seen that internally too. Otherwise, I think they would have more robust features in their core design tool for generating stuff.
Makes sense. And I think this ties into the other thing. So when I run these hackathons, I see that Magic Patterns, Bolt, Lovable, Replit, they all have import from Figma as a way to start your project.
Yeah.
And when it sounds good, but then when you go down the path, I found that either it doesn't work, it's just broken, or if you are able to import Figma, what you get is not what your Figma board looked like. And we talked about so I'm just curious, it sounds like, and then what we basically realized is, hey, you're better off just taking a screenshot of your Figma, whatever you want in Figma, you're better off taking a screenshot and inputting that. So is that the sad reality versus the dream of the Figma import? I mean,
yeah, so it's interesting. I have seen some YouTube videos where people compare like import from Figma versus a screenshot. And I actually like the screenshot did win in this particular video. It was like Peter Yang.
Did or didn't?
It did. The screenshot won.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is it's simply, what context am I grabbing? Right. So when you use import from Figma on most of these tools, you are using the Figma MCP under the hood, right? Which is giving existing context. But it can be challenging. It's funny, actually, right before I walked on stage, I got a text from my co-founder that the Figma MCP, we were like now unauthorized, we were denied access. Like literally 5 minutes ago.
Well, that's the one thing I was wondering about is in a sense, Figma, I've been around for a while. So it's like, back in the day, it was like Illustrator and Photoshop, and then it was Sketch. And now Figma has like dominant market share in the designers. All the designers use Figma. I couldn't even tell you the second tool that they use, right? And so they've got this lock, and they've gotten really used to the workflow and the artboards, and now vibe coding is coming along. And so it seems like it could potentially disrupt that a lot. And so it makes me wonder at some points, like, does Figma even want to expose their stuff to the vibe coding tools or not? So I don't know. It's just interesting. I didn't know. That's interesting. Hot off the press news.
It literally happened 5 minutes ago. But let's see. I don't know. We don't.
It might be a tech issue.
We don't really know what the real problem is. But I think it's a good point in general, even more broadly, which is like definitely there's a shift happening in how people are developing software and using tools like ours or Lovable or Bolt or Figma Make to prototype their ideas and like visually communicate.
And I just want to tack on one other point. So when I share this, the workflow I always espouse from the Lean Product Playbook is, hey, you should create a Figma, and you should do a hand sketch and do a wireframe if it's warranted, but eventually get to a clickable, tappable Figma, and you should test that with your customers before you do any coding. And so everybody goes, yeah, that's a good idea. The thing that I found is, unfortunately, not every team has a designer or prototyper ready to go saying, put me in, coach, I'll do it, right? And so I call that the design gap. And I don't have the slide here, but it's one of my oldest slides from 2006 that I created because I saw it on so many teams. And whenever let's just do a real quick survey. Who here feels like they have adequate design resources to prototype their product ideas? Okay, so we got 2 hands out of about, right? So that's about, I usually get about 5%. It's plus or minus, right? But it's about 5%. So it's, even though we all know design is important and design has grown and all this jazz, for various reasons, your particular product at this particular time, you don't have a prototyper. And so that's the cool thing for me, is vibe coding unlocks that situation for teams that don't have a designer. You don't have to be technical. So I think it is exciting. So the pre-vibe coding, if you wanted to do an interactive prototype, all roads led to Figma, basically. And now we've got this new path of being able to quickly get to. And when my last couple of workshops, I realized the vibe coding things are actually higher fidelity than Figma, because yes, you can click on both, but you can actually have like data persistence if you want, right? Or you can do local storage. I know you guys don't have a backend, but there are other interactions because it's JavaScript. It can be, for a long time, there was a power prototyping tool called Acture, and people loved it because it mimicked JavaScript kind of actions that you can. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great call out where the designers that use us, they comment on how they love the interactivity that we provide, right? Because in core design tools, because it's optimizing for dragging and dropping, they don't have the ability to do those interactions, which require JavaScript, which require code, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a great call out.
Yeah, animations, I guess too, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Animations. I had somebody who used one of my favorite Magic Patterns use cases. They were like trying to film a video where they wanted to show their product flashing, I don't know. And they use Magic Patterns to do the animation.
Nice.
Right? So it's pretty cool.
Cool. Okay. And the other topic, to switch topics real quick, is, when I showed my spectrum, I said the left half is vibe prototyping and the right half is vibe coding. I do that because not every once in a while, quite often you see people on LinkedIn saying, oh, the vibe code, we can't put that on production, it's not secure. People like people that are hardcore engineers kind of poo-pooing it and saying this is bad, right? And for me, I just look at that and I go, yeah, but why would you ever, the fallacy is thinking that you would take this code as is and deploy it as is. Like for me, the use case of we are prototyping this idea to get feedback and iterate before we code it is a completely different use case than we are actually modifying our production code. And yeah, gosh, that makes sense. So right now there are 2 use cases. Of course it makes sense. If we could somehow have that merge diff be as small as possible, that would be great if we could reuse it. And now you're seeing all these companies use the tagline from idea to production. Like everyone's saying from idea to production. Are you guys too? Okay. Right. So
I can explain why though, but keep going.
All right, go for it. Yeah. So anyway, I just see that I see one, do you agree that there's 2 use cases? And 2, how do you see, I think that there's pressure to try to bring them together. How do you see that playing out? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, the vision is absolutely to bring them together. It's why we use the tagline, right? So, and honestly, I do see at a lot of companies, they are taking it all the way to production. But the way that they're using it in the case of our tool is we have like an export button, and you can click export, copy code as prompt. And you can take that code and then feed it into Cursor or whatever you're using, Claude Code. And that, Cursor and Claude Code are great at taking vanilla regular React code that we outputted, that's very basic, that's in their training data, and converting it to the nuances of the customer's code base.
Oh, cool.
So I do see it where, it's not our tool that's necessarily
but you're in the workflow. You're the first part of the workflow.
Exactly. And I'm seeing companies now, if they have the opportunity to build a new project or a new code base, they are deliberately optimizing for a tech stack that large language models know well. Right. I see the sadness in our customers' eyes when they're like, we'd love to use the export button to take it to Cursor. Do you export Angular? And we're like, no, unfortunately, it's not, right? Yeah. And so people are then thinking about, okay, well, what do they always ask me, what do the AI models know well?
Right. And so, and this is good. This is kind of under the hood techie geeky talk that you wouldn't think about from vibe coding, but it's true, which is they're trained on certain languages. And so definitely all the ones I use, it's putting out React. Is that the only one, or that's the biggest one? What's the second biggest one, would you say? Do we know?
A great question.
I'm just curious if there's other.
Well, like sometimes you just output like raw HTML.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right? Or things like that. I mean, in our case, it's always about the visual.
Right.
A lot of the mobile app generators that are doing React Native.
Yes.
Right. But yeah, like React is just so popular.
Right.
There's Vue is another one.
Yeah.
VUE.
Yeah.
But what's funny is also like, I think a lot of our customers, they may not even know what's being outputted.
Of course.
But we're talking about it today because I think it's important under the hood to recognize, okay, what are the challenges with getting to idea
Well,
production,
if you want
right?
to take to production, at the end of the day, you're like, hey, we've got this amazing prototype, and you try to put it in Cursor, and it's like, wah, this is React, and this is Angular.
Yeah.
And it can't do it. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, it can,
It's hard,
right?
yeah.
It's just hard.
Not optimal.
They're optimizing for
React.
if I had a choice of starting like a new code base today, right? Like I would choose things that large language models know well.
Makes sense. Yeah. So it's only if it also it depends on when your code stack was started and what was the JavaScript library du jour and the decision maker and what they liked, right? So back in the day. So interesting. How about on the CSS front?
So, right now we output Tailwind CSS.
That seems like a very popular one.
And so the reason it's so popular, it's pretty interesting, is Tailwind CSS is very concise, right? So, and it's very concise, which makes it very AI friendly because it's not using as many tokens. We can get into that whole conversation, but so that's been pretty interesting. Like Tailwind, I think, is experiencing an explosion in usage because AI models love it because it's concise.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, if you're starting a new project and you get to pick your code stack and you want it to work well with LMs, it sounds like you should do React and Tailwind. Is that what I'm saying?
I'm biased because that's what our tool uses, but I mean, that's what Lovable is producing. That's what Lovable is producing. Bolt, there's, some tools that can kind of produce all of them, like they allow for it.
Okay.
But also what's difficult for all of these companies is rendering the thing, visualizing it.
Right.
It's very challenging, actually. So that's a lot of the reason why a tool like ours might only produce one.
Got it. I see. Just to make it easier on yourself. I see.
Well,
to understand. I mean, for your tool to understand it makes sense. I mean, the more parameters you want to do, right? Okay, got it. Cool. Yeah, sounds great. All right. And then, I mean, you don't do the backend, but for me, the similar thing is like Supabase seems to be like, right, for databases, pretty much the default.
Yeah, super popular. It's talking about right company at the right time, and so that's spectacular growth that they've seen.
Okay. So do you have any temptation to add any backend?
We definitely have the temptation. That's for sure. We talk about it all the time internally.
Okay.
But I think it would lead to like a decrease in product quality. Okay. One of the reasons a lot of folks use this is just they say it's fast.
Right.
And the reason it's fast is there is no inference. There's the AI is not spending any time thinking about adding a database. Right. We're very focused on the prototyping use case, helping you craft that idea using your existing styles, and then going to production. And I'll also comment, like when you don't have a database, it is actually easier to go to production, because there's no way your engineers are going to use the random Supabase database that you just spun up.
Right. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. And speaking of that, I think you guys have a focus on speed. I don't know if it's still there, but you could pick fast mode or fast or smart or something. What was the choices that you could pick?
Yeah, so I mean, all that was happening under the hood is which AI model you were choosing.
Oh, okay.
But we had like a best mode and a fast mode, and it was basically a different AI model.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Interesting. Okay, cool. And so, how about this then? So the other thing that I'm realizing is if you're going to build a front end only product thing and you want to use it on the back end, it seems to me like having an API layer might be a convenient way to have your cake and eat it too. And we all know from engineering best practices that you're supposed to separate your front end from your back end with an API layer anyway. Are you seeing any people doing that?
Like spinning up their own API?
No, like using production API, hitting API endpoints with the front end so that, you have the separation of the back end and the front end.
I don't see that as much, but what I do see is folks in their prompt, they will include their data model.
Right, okay.
Right, where in your first prompt, arguably the most important, or in your design preset, as we were talking about earlier, your rules, they might include, hey, this is my existing data model.
Got it.
So that the AI renders that in that format and makes it easier to hand off to the engineer.
Got it. Yeah, okay. So that's cool, that workflow of take your front end magic patterns as a code prompt and then go put it into Cursor or Claude Code. That's one way to get to production. Mm-hmm. I think another way is is with APIs. If you did have a full working front end, you could kind of like at least to push it forward and see if it plug and plays. I don't know. That would be an interesting way.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually do have an API product where people can programmatically generate magic patterns designs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we do have some folks who, like the folks at Atlassian, they were using it a bit where they were taking stuff from a Jira ticket.
Okay.
Programmatically feeding it into magic patterns, and then they get back a URL because every magic patterns design is a website, and attaching it to the Jira ticket automatically.
Okay, and it's like it auto generates a prototype for you.
Exactly, it's auto generating a prototype from the user story that's in the Jira ticket.
In case you do have a design gap, it automatically fills it for you then, right?
Yeah, it was just like it's the way that they were using it is every day in stand-up, they would have their user story or their Jira description, but then they'd have a visual associated with it.
Cool. Interesting. All right, cool. Interesting. There's one other feature we were talking about, which I think is interesting that I saw Lovable has that you guys have as well, which is, oftentimes when you're vibe coding, it's just you by yourself. And then and we have the version history, so you can always go back. If you wanted to collaborate with other people, one way to do it was via GitHub, but it's kind of clunky because it's kind of clunky. But I see that Lovable and Magic Patterns, you now have the ability to it's called share, but you can basically code with someone else at the same time. Do you want to tell people about that and how it works?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, shout out to Figma for really pioneering this, right? Yeah. Multiplayer, where on Magic Patterns, it works a lot like a Google Doc where you can invite a team member and then in real time, Dan's prompting, make it red, and then I can do a quick follow-up prompt, make it purple, right? And so that multiplayer experience, Yeah,
I saw it very powerful in a couple of workshops where there was a designer and a PM team together, coding together. And the way I described it was, it's like a three-way text thread with the two of us, say me and you were coding, it'd be us two in Magic Patterns. And so there'd be a speech bubble from Magic Patterns, there'd be a speech bubble from you, right? And we could kind of do it as a group text.
It's very fun. I see it. It creates a lot of user delight.
Yes.
And especially in demos, when I'm doing a demo and I invite whoever I'm speaking with. I say, hey, hop on this link right now. And then they see them prompting live, right? And people love that.
Right.
And it makes it more fun.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I think related to that is the sharing model. Like, at some point you want to give the URL to somebody else to check out. And the cool thing, I think, do you guys have you can be a viewer or an editor, you get to specify?
We do, yeah. Okay. I mean, I think everyone is pretty much maybe Google Drive
at this Google
point,
Drive permissions,
the gold standard for how you do collaboration and things like that.
Right.
Also with sharing, we have like enabling feedback.
Right.
So that's one of the differences between us and all the other tools, again, focused on these product management use cases. We have enabling feedback where then when you share the link, it will ask you some questions, whatever feedback questions that you inputted. We also have password protection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a very popular one. I don't know why the other tools don't have it, but
yeah. Got it. Cool. Yeah, because they're all kind of public URLs, right? Although I do think they're supposed to have, some of them have some privacy settings. I don't know how that works. I guess they make you auth through the tool, which is inconvenient. The good thing about a privacy is any third party that you want to show it to could without having to register for a Magic Patterns account, I assume.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything with all of these tools, what's happening under the hood is their websites. Right. I think that's kind of like the fun thing to think about is when you prompt a button on any of these tools, Lovable, Bolt, Magic Patterns, you're actually getting back a little website that was just spun up. And all that's on that website is your button that you created. Yeah. So you are a website builder every day when you use these tools.
Cool. So what are the top pain points just in general with vibe coding today? And I know that the industry is addressing them over time, but what are the top pain points that you see people running into?
From like a user perspective?
Yeah, from a user perspective. When they're trying to vibe code something, yeah.
I will say, so like you, I do workshops, right? Where it's a little different though, because they're using our tool explicitly. Yeah, they're already customers of our tool. And I think it's always boils down to prompting. I don't think people recognize enough how important prompting is. And, people used to make fun of prompt engineering.
I know.
It's like a meme, like prompt engineering. It's not a meme. Like that is real. Like that is the most core part of our system. And then also how you can get the most value out of it. So using things like in our case, we have select mode where you can select anything on the website to give the AI context, or just being really thoughtful with what you're writing. I commonly see people like, they're cursing at it. They're like, so you're not working, or fix it. Like that's just not going to lead you to a good place, right? And I understand the frustration. It's very painful for us to see that. And one of the things we always are trying to improve, but.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think that, you're seeing a shift in the conversation from prompt engineering. Now people are talking about context, right? Context engineering. And I think it's the same thing of people realizing you need to provide way more context. Like everybody does the first time fun things like build an Airbnb clone. And it's like, and then you realize I'm not going to beat Airbnb with that thing. And, so it's like, you really do have to be specific. And then like Kiro has their term spec-driven development. So people are heading towards, the other thing is, I remember the tools, the first few workshops and hackathons we did, they would go straight to a preview. Right? They would like, you paste your PRD in and you get a preview. After a few minutes, you get a preview, but you get something, right? And then I taught a workshop. I'm like, hey, everybody paste in your preview. I pasted my preview. I came back and the preview was blank. I'm like, oh no, was there a bug? No, it wasn't there. It was a bug. It's like, hey, before I do this, I just got a few questions for you. Hold on. Like, so the tools themselves, they went from like expediency YOLO mode. They themselves are realizing, hey, it's better if we slow down the user and ask them some clarifying questions. They're going to be happier with the output than if we just give them the Airbnb clone right away. I don't know. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like we've seen that. We're slowly rolling out in agent mode. 50% of users get it right now, by the way. 50% of users get on Magic Patterns, but in our agent mode, it might, if you're not specific enough, like if you just prompt like dashboard, it's going to stop you and say, what do you want to see? Yeah. Because we saw a lot of, when you don't clarify the intent. You're going to bounce off the page.
Sure. And I think that what I've come to realize is there's a natural discovery. Like you put in your best PRD or initial prompt and you can't get everything. You're not going to get everything. And then when the thing comes up, you're like, oh, there's a table. I forgot to say how it's supposed to be sorted. Okay, let me go back. And that's just one example of all the things you're going to do. My big takeaway is anything you leave unspecified, it's going to roll the dice and pick an answer for that. And the chances are it's not going to pick the answer that you would have picked had you thought about it. That's my general thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's important for folks to remember that with these AI models, there's this concept of temperature is what they call it, but it's randomness, right? And so it literally is rolling the dice. And so I think that's always very important where it can't read your mind. If you know what you need to say, you should include it in the prompt.
Yeah. And the other thing we were talking about is I think, like I could see someone saying, fix it. That's too vague, right? Like fix what? Like it doesn't know what to do, right?
There's that problem. And then there's also this problem of, I think our job as product managers, as product leaders, when we're prompting with these tools is managing the context.
Yes.
Managing what are you telling the AI at a given moment.
Right.
It's why we have features like design presets and things like that. But managing the context. So I call it context rot. That's this term that's being thrown around. Context rot. If you tell it, fix it. By the sixth fix it, it may have forgotten what you're even talking about like 7 prompts ago.
Yeah. And I think that we talked about this briefly is like, for me, I'm really excited about coding. For me, it's like the perfect storm of the combination of PM, dev, and UX design. And I think that to know how to talk to it most effectively, it can be helpful to know a bit about UX design or know a bit about the technical stuff. So that thing's on top of the other thing. You need to change the Z index or so, or like, hey, move this div or something. Not anything too deep, but have you seen that where like
I do.
Difference?
It's maybe one of my more controversial takes because there's some other CEOs of these vibe prototyping startups where they say there's no need to learn how to code anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Like I think it is very important to understand what is happening technically under the hood. Z index is a great a great example. That means, right, like the overlay on the screen, right? Like what's the stack? And that's an example when people say, I can't see my thing, right? It is much more powerful to say, hey, AI, could you look into the Z index issue?
Right.
Or, hey, AI, like what's happening under the hood with the CSS?
Right.
being as technical as possible, I do think right now, at least where the state of the technology is today, it's powerful. You're being more specific. The AI under the hood is reading and writing code.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, then let's project into the future a little bit. What are the trends that you see? What are the trends or directions that you see? Like you think the current vibe coding products, how are they going to evolve over the next year or so?
Idea to production.
Okay. There you go.
I mean, everybody is working on that, right? And that is everything that folks are talking about.
Right.
And I think, what needs to happen there is just have the AI models having a better understanding of the nuances of a given code base, I also think one thing that we're just doubling down on is components and using your existing design system.
Right.
And then, hopefully speed, right? It is important. There's this big trade-off to your point earlier about it stopping you, right? As this trade-off between do you want it quickly or do you want the user's entire intent to be captured?
Right. I think the interesting thing, so I think a lot of people are non-technical. And I think that what I've seen is inevitably you're coding along, you're vibe coding, and there's a change you want to make, or there's a bug or something, and I call it the debug death loop, where you're trying and it just will not. And it's like the eager beaver junior interns, like, you're right, Alex, that is wrong. Let me go fix it. I totally fixed it. And you go and it's like, you didn't fix it. Oh my gosh, you're totally right. I didn't fix it. I fixed it now. Don't worry. It'll do Groundhog Day you all day long, right? And so there's that debug death loop. So I think that is still an issue. And it's interesting that Bolt in their V2 messaging, that was the thing they hit on the nose. They're like 98% fewer errors or something. So I don't know. Do you see a lot of people getting caught up with the debugging death loop?
Well, what's interesting is, of course, I do see that. I'd be denying if I didn't see that. Yes, I know. Okay. I've had some support tickets where I would spend hours trying to get the AI back on track.
Right.
What I think maybe the reason we don't see it as much is because we're front end only.
Sure.
We can deterministically fix errors a lot more easily because there's a narrower scope of what's possible on the platform, which leads to less errors in general.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that back to what we were saying earlier, if you're a little bit technical, you can get through some of those debug things where someone who maybe wouldn't be able to. Right.
Totally. I've seen some power users where what they do is they might, if they're in a debug death loop, they will export it to GitHub.
Exactly. Yeah.
Use Cursor, their sledgehammer.
Totally.
Right. And then re-import it back into Magic Patterns.
Exactly.
Because Cursor has a different job, right? Like Cursor's not necessarily as worried about does it render.
Right.
Whereas our tool is so hyper-focused on making sure that the visual is there.
That makes sense. Yeah. I call that getting a second opinion. It's like, you go to the one doctor, you get the debug death loop. You got to figure out, how do I get this code somewhere else to get a second opinion, basically. It's
interesting. I think there was some study or something one of our engineers on the team was telling us where if you sometimes feed it to a different AI model, it can be helpful fixing that existing problem, right? Like in our case, we use a mix of GPT and Sonnet, but then if you feed it to Gemini, maybe Gemini knows how to fix it because Gemini has a different training set,
right? Yeah, no, I think it definitely, that's because what happens is everyone's cruising along. This vibe coding is awesome. It's awesome. And then they hit their first debug death loop and they're literally stuck. Like if, you know what I mean? Like if you can't code, if you don't know the code, you're just like, what do I do now? Right. Yeah.
You're getting at another reason why we do front end only, which is, I do see with some of the other tools, eventually you graduate.
Yeah, no, you move to the right. That's the thing. There's a natural migration to the right on the spectrum as you go up, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Right. Like there's at a certain level, you still need to get an engineer or use Cursor, right? Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So that's one trend. Any other trends?
I think more, as we were talking about earlier, where your design system lives, where your components live, that being more code first. It's pretty cool. Like on Magic Patterns, we've seen people now, their component libriaries are hosted on Magic Patterns because it's a code first representation of it, right?
Okay.
I think in general, the space, and by space, I mean software development, product development in general, is moving toward like a code first approach. Right? Where everything kind of starts in code. Because that is the end thing that the user sees, right? That is production.
Sure. Instead of Figma, for example.
Yeah, instead of Figma, or just like instead of I mean, again, Figma is an amazing tool, but instead of maybe a PRD, right?
Or, I'm saying like, specifically for design systems and components, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they pretty much, you've either gone all the way to the full level maturity of putting it on some some website where you can grab it, or it's in Figma, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly, so what you're just saying is one way is if people have it in Storybook, maybe we can get it from there. It sounds like you're saying, well, maybe can it initiate in Magic Pattern? I mean, if people have existing components, I guess, how would they get it from there? I guess, aside from the Storybook mass import, how would I get a bunch of components in there other than doing it one by one? Or having your support team do it for me, because I'm a big enterprise client, right?
The VIP concierge service. Yes. We will just import it all manually.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, look, through tools like the Figma MCP, right? That's what we're attempting to do. We're trying to bulk import it, or the Storybook MCP. Got it. Or maybe there's a world in which, you feed us a zip file of all your screenshots of all your components, and we're importing it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just think, like, in general, everything is moving more toward a code first approach.
No, it makes sense. It makes complete sense. Cool. Okay. Is there anything we didn't get to that you want to cover today?
Are there any questions?
Yeah, let's do questions. Let's go. Yes, I was going to say.
I haven't.
Yeah, we got them. But is there anything we didn't cover yet before we get to the questions that you wanted to chat about?
No. Go for the questions. I love it.
Okay, let's go for it. All right.
Yeah.
So, how do you measure usage of features and user intents now that a lot of interaction is done through prompts?
That's a great question. So yeah, we do have like usage reporting for our enterprise customers, and it's challenging because I notice that they will use number of prompts as, like whether or not the tool is successful adoption wise. And it's so painful because theoretically on a tool like this, Magic Patterns, you could use 500 prompts. Does that mean it was successful? Like, did you end up using the output? Did you use the visual? Versus maybe someone uses one prompt or two prompts and they get exactly what they want right away. It's very challenging. And so just to answer it directly, yeah, so like we measure like number of designs created, number of prompts. For us, we try to calculate the ROI on, did you actually share the design? Did you do anything with it? Did you export it to GitHub? Did you export it to Figma? It's another thing our tool does that I realized we didn't mention.
Right.
So,
got it. Okay, sounds good. And just to follow up on that, I was talking to someone else about this. Like on a normal product, you might have a heat map, or you look at where people are going. What kind of feedback loop do you have on the prompt stuff? Like the prompt response quality, if you will, or whatever you want to call it.
So this is interesting. So people may notice that there's thumbs up, thumbs down on like all of these tools. For a long time, we didn't have that. We were so naive. We thought, no one's going to use that. Like, why are people clicking thumbs up, thumbs down? It is so popular, right? So it's surprising. I mean, maybe folks in this room, and maybe you've never even noticed it that it exists.
I didn't. I see it on ChatGPT. I didn't see it on
Have you ever clicked one?
Yeah, that I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, you are in the majority, I suppose. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah. No, but on ChatGPT, but I haven't seen it on the Vibe coding tools per se. You guys have it, you're saying?
We do have it.
Okay.
We do have it, and we do use it. And, we're always constantly evaluating like our underlying system prompt and reevaluating it. There is this concept of evals.
Right.
I don't know if you've teach that.
No, let's talk, yeah.
Yeah, where, there's this concept of you have a large language model judge like your output, right? Where maybe I ask Magic Patterns to generate me something. And then I ask another AI to say, how good is this? And then that's how I compare and contrast like whether the prompt is better or not. What's funny is I'm not really too sold on it. Like we've been very lean on our evals, and I think have still done okay.
Yeah.
I can't tell if that's just like a fake thing that people say you need to do, because it's all really vibe based, right? Like, it's so subjective.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think I would argue maybe at a high level, it's more necessary for general text usage than code, perhaps, right? It's like you're already narrowing the scope of the problem, I feel like.
Yeah, in our case, it's particularly difficult because there's a couple of things that determine success. It's, does it show? Does it render?
Right.
As we've been talking about.
Yeah.
How good does it look?
Yeah.
Can a computer really judge that right now? Like, not really. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I was wondering. Are there things you do, maybe things that don't scale, or one-offs or batch processes or something to evaluate that?
So we use Magic Patterns within Magic Patterns, where one thing we'll do is if we create a new prompt, we'll generate like 50 designs on V1 and V2.
Okay.
And then internally, we will create a Magic Patterns link, dogfooding our own software, and we'll vote like which one is better, left or right, and we'll randomize it.
Got it.
And then we'll see, did most people subjectively
Got it.
say that V2 is better or not? And then we'll make the change to the prompt.
Got it. Cool. All right. Very cool. Okay. Next question. What's the fastest moving innovation area for your team today in response to customer needs and AI capabilities?
Fastest moving
innovation area.
We try to move fast in all aspects. I mean, we're a pretty small, lean team as a startup. I think that is one of the advantages, right? I mean, one thing we're just super hyper focused on is really using your existing product styles, right? Using your components, grabbing that existing context. So,
okay, cool. Another one related to the first one kind of is, what are your internal KPIs and how do you measure product iteration effectiveness?
Yes, growth is the number one KPI, right? Revenue growth, user growth. We also measure like retention, number of page views, right? Like top of funnel.
Yeah.
Enterprise pipeline value is another core KPI, right?
Nice.
I recognize it's very high level maybe for folks like in the room. It's the reality of being a small startup where we're not totally focused yet on like the nitty gritty of how many shares are sent, right? Or, how many designs are created. Like it's more, how is user growth and revenue growth?
Those all sound like good high level ones. Related to that, so there's been a lot of speculation and noise and talk lately about, these companies are giving away free credits, they're bleeding money. Do you have any comments on the kind of economic situation, the microeconomic or macroeconomic situation?
Well, I can tell you, after hiring and stuff, we are no longer, but we were profitable for a very long time. So I can tell you that it is possible to run these companies and be profitable. Like that is just a fact that has been done. Right. I will say that yes, like traditional SaaS margins, I don't know, or whatever, 80%, 90%, like they're less for sure here. I think
because the COGS is higher because of
because every single generation you do in Magic Patterns, we are paying Anthropic, or AWS Bedrock, right? And so yes, these foundational model labs are very highly valued because their revenue is amazing from tools like ours, and that's why we're usage based and things like that.
Right.
But I would still say like the margins are good. Like they're better than I think people would say.
Sure, got it. So then I think the other thing that people would point out is they say, a lot of people go and try these tools, but then they don't retain. They don't come back. It's like looky-loo kind of people checking it out. I don't know.
There is a lot of that. I call that an AI tourist.
Okay, nice.
AI tourist.
Yes.
What's been interesting though is we can pretty easily spot the AI tourists. Like if they have a component library, they are not an AI tourist.
Right.
If they're creating a preset, they're not an AI tourist.
That makes sense.
And that's why we're focused, like over time, why we've doubled down on those use cases.
Got it. Well, that kind of gets also to target customer. And so you mentioned a few times enterprise. There's like the solopreneur market. And so what is your sweet spot market?
Yeah, so I mean, right now it's a lot of teams.
Okay.
Where honestly, it really ranges from startups all the way to very, very large enterprises.
Okay.
Because it all starts with an individual just signing up, and then they invite their team, they share their prototype. Right, a team of product managers, and then next thing you know, it's another team of product managers. Yeah.
Okay, so like we have one early adopter in the group.
Exactly.
And then they share it, and they tell two people.
It's very actually classic, like PLG.
Yeah. Okay. Super cool. Okay. And then the other thing is there's recently some data put out that they were tracking usage of all the tools, and then they aggregated it. And according to that chart, the vibe coding traffic peaked in June. Does that sound right to you?
I could see, like, in our case, like we're still growing, right?
Okay,
that's we're smaller.
Sure.
I don't know, like the direct answer. I'll be very transparent.
The whole category at large, you know what I mean? That's kind of what
I've seen the same chart, right? Where it's like all the major tools and
up in June, and then they've been down since then, supposedly.
I mean, totally. I can say that it felt like in maybe my Instagram feed and my Twitter feed or LinkedIn are hyper saturated, but it felt like that, right? We're like every single day.
Right.
But I'll say what's been really cool is seeing like which use cases retain. Right. And it is very clear to me there is value being created here.
Sure.
For work use cases at work.
Sure.
But maybe that's like, the AI tourist peaked in June.
Well, that's what I'm trying to, not to go down, but I'm trying to wrap my head around this because we're such early days in vibe coding. Like I constantly do surveys of groups, whether it's a hackathon or this. And routinely, 60 to 80% of people say they have not tried it yet. So that doesn't jive with me that if I keep talking to groups and 60 to 80% of people, so maybe like the early adopters came and checked it out, but it just seems odd to me. I don't know, where it seems like we're early in market penetration for the thing to already go down.
I mean, for sure I can say that it is a huge market.
Right.
I think people kind of get hung up sometimes where they think, oh, it's just for engineers.
Right.
Or it's just maybe for product managers.
No, they do. And it's crazy because the word coding throws people off. I'm like telling people about my workshop, I have to say no coding, like in all caps, no coding skills required because they see the word coding and it's very confusing for them.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why early we like hid the code tab on Magic Patterns because we would get feedback from customers. They'd be like, "I'm really scared right now. Like, there's code," and I'm like, "Don't be scared.
You clicked the wrong button.
It's all gonna be okay, right?" So then we hide it intentionally. Right. I noticed V0 did that too. For a long time, they were streaming in code. They would stream it in.
Oh, real time as it's doing it?
And I hear feedback from our customers. They'd be like, I didn't like V0. It felt like it was for engineers. And then V0 removed it. So they're paying attention to their customers. I have mad respect.
Got it. Yeah. It's funny because the non-technical people see the word coding and they go, ooh, that's scary. And the technical people see the word vibe and go, oh, that's like not good code, right? It's kind of funny. Okay. Next one up is you mentioned it was challenging to find product market fit for some earlier ideas. Can you share your story of when Magic Patterns realized you had hit PMF?
Well, I think one of the big moments where I knew we hit PMF is a large enterprise. They had like 50 seats with us, and then they just asked for 50 more seats. Like that was a big moment for me where I'm like, whoa, okay, like you're doubling down on this. I'm always so conscious of like, do we have PMF or not? Because a lot of this does feel like a flash in the pan, right. But when you see them retaining or when they're on monthly contracts and they want to move to annual, that I'm very bullish on. So that was where the big moments. With the other products, one of the things we were doing right before Magic Patterns was a tool that we were selling to designers. They could like actually go from Figma to code, funny enough. And they paid us, but they didn't use it. And I thought it was such a big moment. Like they're paying us. Oh my gosh, like we did it. And then never ever used it.
You know what I call that? That's purchase market fit. That's not product market fit.
Yes.
Maybe you're in the same fraternity as the sales guy was in the same fraternity as that person. You got the deal closed, right? But,
Well, in that case, it was challenging. We had like one really big customer because it was totally organic. Like it was.
No. I know that. Yeah. I'm saying that's how it usually happens.
Totally.
Big enterprise sale, but then it doesn't live up to the expectations and people don't use it.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about like, you find users who love your product, that keyword love. And I think that's so hard where sometimes people are just so nice to you. I love this book called The Mom Test.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Highly recommend it. Like changed my life.
Well, what we call that is false positives.
Exactly.
False positives. And because basically people, if they listen to their mom said, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, right? So they're like, oh, this is a lovely product, right? So you have to do what we call skin in the game. You got to put some skin in the game. So it's not just that it's the default isn't the false positive. My favorite is, I'm like, hey, would you use this? No, I wouldn't use it, but I could totally see how other people would use it. I'm like, we're interviewing you. You're our target customer, right? So you need, and the skin in the game, the three types that we do are, one, like say I'm showing you the Magic Patterns and it sounds like you really like it, Alex. Cool. We're going to be working on some new features. Can we we're going to be back in 3 weeks with the next build. Can we schedule time on your calendar right now? If you really loved it, what would you do? You're like, yeah, let's do it, right? If you were just giving us a fake positive, you're like, oh, well, check with my admin. I don't know. We'll see what's up, right? So it's time. The other is money. Hey, sounds like you're really interested in it. We have a $1,000 fully refundable deposit, but that gets you into the private beta. Are you game or not? And then the last one is, hey, sounds like you really like it. Can you recommend 3 other product managers you work with that we can talk to? So that's kind of the skin of the game. I've seen it play out where the test was going amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, they really love my product. And then at the very end, you ask for skin in the game. Well, they're like, nope. And all that is invalidated that second. All that data was baloney the whole time, right? So, yeah.
So true. For my favorite one is if their feedback is make it dark mode. So like our website's light mode.
Yeah.
Right? It's white, right? And if, I'd ask these customers, and I think they're loving it. They're like giving such great feedback, and then they just say, "Oh, my number one piece of feedback is make it dark mode."
Yeah.
It's like they're not actually using it, right? Like that's why I was always so weary.
Yeah. What that makes me think of another thing is every other tool has the chat on the left. Why on the right, Alex?
That's so funny.
I didn't mean to stump you, but just saying.
Why on the right?
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do know what you're talking about.
Okay.
That's correct. We are the only one on the right. And what's funny is I actually think it's because we're so preview first. For a long time, these tools actually, you could actually see the chat and the code. We are one of the only ones where it's always the preview.
Preview first.
It's always the preview. And that is very intentional, I think, speaking just to like our use case. So that is intentional. But I laugh because, it's a common question.
No, that's cool. Do you ask people asking you to put on the left or not?
No, actually, we've never had anybody ask it.
That's good. That's good. All right, cool. Sounds good. Okay, why don't we any questions from the audience here? I know we have the Slido, but we have people here. Anybody want to ask a question? We got a mic. All right, Jorge, here we go. I'm sure he has a good question, at least one.
On the journey to help people from idea to production, how are you thinking of helping them more on the idea side? Because the time in which they already send in the prompt, the idea is already typed. It's already going to be working on kind of instead of a solution space. Not even if you then go back and learn. But have you thought about any other way to help them ideate or do the work before the prompt?
Totally, yeah. Like one of the features we just added this week actually is enhanced prompt, where if you just type in like a dashboard for sales, you click enhance, and then the AI just makes it longer for you. Now there's dangers there, right? Because maybe it enhances it in a way that you didn't actually intend. And so then you hit enter really quickly and you're like, wait, this is totally off from what I was thinking, So it's challenging. But yeah, that is one way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. And any other work with other companies in that space, like Miro or other ways to try and get information in that is not just Figma or just prompts, like they did with the release? Or?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the companies that we partner with is ChatPRD. If folks know ChatPRD, if you click export, you can export to Magic Patterns, right? Where all that's happening right there is taking the prompt and putting it into Magic Patterns. So yeah, we're always thinking about how do you get your context in. I always tell folks like copy paste from Jira. Sounds like we just need to add a Jira plugin or something like that. But
is it coming through an official API to get into Magic Patterns then? The prompt?
The ChatPRD example?
No, it does a redirection based on the query string.
Yeah, it's in the URL.
Okay, so you have a character limit then.
You do run into a character limit. Yeah, that's a good point. So it's funny. I've been talking to ChatPRD about maybe they just use our API instead. But
so you do have an API that could be used for input, or
we do have an API. So like a lot of people have built kind of as I was mentioning earlier, internal tooling that
right.
Jira,
yeah, Atlassian, got it. Yeah,
external.
Not meant for that use case. Got it.
Yeah.
One thing I want to come back to is so you brought up from this idea to production. Living the dream. You said one thing you can do is you can get your stuff get it happy in Magic Patterns, and then say copy as code prompt, and then you go into cursor. Do you see? So that's fine, but it's like across multiple tools. Do you see? I think everyone would say, "Gosh, the ideal thing is like one tool that's idea to production." No, do you see that happening, or do you?
I think in the long run, 100%.
Okay.
But one thing that I have learned is you need to be really focused on what problems you're solving.
Agreed.
Cursor's problem is they're ingesting your existing code base context, indexing on it, and then having their AI or their prompt know what code files to use, what's relevant, right? So yes, I mean in the long term, but like in the short term, we're not really focused on that problem set.
No, I don't think you should be. And I hear you. The interesting thing is if you do consider them as two distinct markets and two distinct use cases, is like if the people on the left, the prototypers, try to go too far to the right, they're going to lose. If they get too technical, then it's not going to work, right?
Well, and I think that's honestly why we've seen a lot of product market fit with our own solution
Right.
at big companies because it's very focused on that use case because
Right.
they know, hey, the engineers have their own thing. Right. Versus these tools that try to sell you on like, yeah, it's all in one.
Right.
The technology is not there yet. Like no one is as big enough to handle that right now.
Right. And then if we take the other side, you take the Cursors of the world, I don't think they're going to go and say, now we've added a prototyping layer, right? I mean,
yeah, they added like some visual way where you can kind of render it. I haven't tried it out admittedly, but I saw it. But what's funny to me is none of our customers have been like, I'm using Cursor now. Right. Like it's not, I think there's still very distinct use cases.
Exactly.
Distinct user experiences. But it is funny because, people message me like, you're doomed, like Cursor added visual prototyping and I haven't had a single customer.
So that's the funny thing is everybody says they want idea to production, but they are two distinct use cases. And if either side moves too far to the other side, it's going to lose its mojo, its special thing. And it's, I don't know, like it doesn't make sense to me that Cursor would really go deep into visual prototyping, right? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I also I think it's okay to acknowledge that there is some marketing that's happening here, right? Which is like you hop into these meetings and people maybe who they haven't attended the Lean Product Meetup.
There you go.
Right? They are like executives or C-suite, and they're just saying, well, I want my engineering team to go faster. I want idea to production.
Right.
And we do help with that. And
of course you do. No, totally.
These tools do help with that, right? Yeah. Whereas if you go in and you're like, we do is
right. They're not going to limit it. No, I hear you. But what I'm trying to say is, one model is, hey, either the vibe coding tools like Cursor grow into up the factory line so you can do everything. That sounds unlikely. The prototyping tools go down the factory line and add a bunch of technical stuff. That seems unlikely. So right now, the best we can do is, hey, you do your front end stuff, and then you take it into one of the back end tools, and then so it's a 2-tool solution. The only one other thing I could think of is one of these the prototyping people and one of the coding people team up to build a good integration, and maybe they get acquired or merged or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how do we get to that? How do we actually get to idea to production? It seems like you'd have to have the combination of two distinct tools that have agreed to work together, I don't know, to make it more seamless. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of talk in the space of like before Cursor, there was a very popular tool called VS Code. People still know it. Right? A VS Code extension. I guess Cursor was a fork of VS Code, but
they all are. Yeah.
Yeah, a VS Code extension that might connect to one of these tools, or like imagine the Magic Patterns VS Code extension. I think at one point I saw V0 marketing one, but I don't know if they ever built it because I think there is this realization that they are distinct right now. It's just the reality.
Yeah. Basically, all the people in the VS Code extension are the same. Like it's like you're either there or CLI. All the CLI people are saying, let's just put a little extension wrapper around this and put it in VS Code, and all the people over there are saying, let's do command line, right? So,
I think since most of us PM here, I think there is still distinction between the personas that use the different tools.
Yeah.
So I think this is more on the product side, and you want to hand it off to engineers to do the engineering side. And this is why it's separate tools, because it's separate personas.
Different roles at the end of the day.
Yeah. Different expertise, and eventually we know you need the expertise in order to get it perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it will merge, but maybe like you said, the import, export.
It's more like streamlining the flow, streamlining the workflow, right? Whether it's a partnership or something. And I think that's a great point, which is why it is two use cases. It's different skill sets, different personas. The other counterpoint to that is everyone is saying that you got the Venn diagram of PM, UX, and just dev, and that those are merging together over time, and you're seeing the product creators or product builders. So the funny thing is, I was just, someone saw that slide and they're like, oh, I'm like, no one's actually posting a job description for a product builder that I know right now. Have you seen some? Okay, well, it's more likely to be in a startup, right? Just to be clear, it's not like IBM is like, or some big company is like, we want a product builder. So it's interesting that right now it's distinct roles, but people are projecting that perhaps those roles would get munged together, which obviously you'd have to be a very technical PM who had, anyway. So it's very interesting to see how it plays out. But that's a great point. So awesome. Question here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a user researcher, so I'm also a user designer as well. So my my focus will be like, as a user, I want to know how is this product, how is my users, what is the user behavior and how effective this prototype, and that eventually can be concept or idea to production, right? But before it goes to production, I really want to test 1% of my user and how this 1% of user, what are their intent and how successfully they meet their intent. And so one of the tools that I used to use is called Pendo. I don't know if you guys use it, but it's not a perfect tool, but I really want to see how this could combine with Pendo before we go to production. 100%, like maybe 1% of the users try that, have Pendo layer on top of your product. Yeah.
It's a great call. I get that question a lot, right? Which is right now people they will use the Magic Patterns link, like the website link, to feed it to their users, maybe in one-off calls to get feedback. But they're always asking me like, well, how can I layer more on top of it or ask more questions or
Basically want to see how interaction, like,
Right.
like using Inferno, using a combination of where users click from here to next and how did they successfully meet their goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I got some user feedback the other day where they're like, can you add a video recording feature? Because I want people to...
Yeah, or the heat map.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think those are definitely on the roadmap someday, right? Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is Lovable. So Lovable, it seems like they've added a lot of little feature. I won't call them little, but like one of the top dings was, security. And so they just had a little security review thing, right? And it kind of, at least at minimum, it addresses that. They also have an analytics thing. So it's like basic high-level analytics. So I think it's along this lines
Yeah, totally.
But it's not like they're going to become a mix panel or a heap or an amplitude, I don't. So, definitely, if you go down to heat maps, that's pretty involved. So, yeah.
Totally. We also host websites where there's like a whole website builder population of our customer base where you can use your own custom domain name. And so that's where a lot of those use cases come up. Like, can I see analytics? And for a long time, we've just said, hey, install Google Analytics. And there you go. There's your whole analytics suite for you. I always try to think about, okay, what is necessary to be built by us or what is already like a great analytics software solution?
If the industry is going from idea to production, I mean, that's really risky, right?
But the thing is, you would already have your production analytics. You would have a production analytics package, and so it would just naturally get instrumented and picked up by that.
Yeah, but then a lot of time, if we do the analytics on top of all our users, you have to redesign the whole thing. So if we analyze 1% of user before we go to production. Fully,
sure,
right? Eat your own products. Eat your own dog food, right?
Yeah. We use like post hog for that. So as I was saying earlier, we have this new mode coming out called agent mode, where literally 50% of users on Magic Patterns right now will get agent mode, which is literally an entirely new AI prompt. But we've been doing it very slowly.
Been throttling it. It's just throttling it up using post hog, right?
Yeah, exactly. The first 10%. I'm so sorry if you were in that batch because there were a lot of bugs.
Yeah. Was there another question? All right, Drew.
Hey, Alex, thanks for being here. Dan, thanks for facilitating. Really fun. I wonder if you have any solidified opinions about how product management workflow has changed from 2022 pre-Gen AI to 2025. Anything that you've said, yes, this is the new way because now we can just do it better.
I'll tell you what I've observed anecdotally. I am definitely seeing PMs being closer to the customer. Before it maybe felt like they had nothing to show the customer or they had to schedule a call and there was just like kind of Q&A back and forth. I mean, I've seen this at some companies. But now it's like a requirement to maybe have a visual prototype to show them if that's what they're demonstrating a new feature. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like I have seen Magic Patterns on a job description for a PM role. One time, one of my favorite moments ever during this company building has been someone scheduled a sales call and and they hop on the call and they're like, hey man, I'm so sorry. I am not actually here to buy your product. I have an interview for Magic Pattern and I have to use Magic Patterns in the interview. Like, what are your best tips? So, and that was cool. So it's happening, whether it's our tool or a different tool, where people are just realizing the value in like a visual prototype, right? And I think there's a lot less time spent over email, over Slack, in Google Docs, writing things, drawing on napkins, hopping on phone calls, and instead just like trying to decide what to build and what not to build more quickly.
Okay.
And I think you're seeing it actually in interviews now. They're expecting PMs to vibe code, like in the interview itself, right? And so I think the other thing that I see is that it's less about documents now. Like, it used to always be about documents and PowerPoints and PRDs and meetings, and we review it. And if you think about it, you're discussing all these ideas in words. It's just so much more powerful if you have a prototype. You can that's what you mean. Okay, cool, right? I wouldn't go as far, somebody said, oh, we don't do PRDs anymore. We just vibe code. I'm like, okay, what do you put in the prompt? We just got done saying if you put in a junky prompt, you're going to get junky stuff, right? So it's very interesting that I think it's elevating because you can quickly get to a visual thing that everybody can align on. I think people are getting aligned more quickly than just by words and documents and meetings.
Totally. I mean, I've heard customers, serious quotes where they've said, hey, used to take us 15 calls to align with this customer on what to build, and now it's taking 3.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I just want to show, this is one of my latest slides, is, as I said, there's multiple audiences for it. There's you as the PM or the designer or developer. You can like say, oh yeah, I missed these things in my PRD. And then there's like the rest of your team, and then there's the stakeholders, right? So I think all these buy-ins, you can get alignment much more quickly with these circles when you've got a working prototype, as opposed to pages of text that they're not going to read. Let's be honest. No one's reading your pages of text, right? And then finally, customers, right? I used to always focus on, you get a Figma, you test with customers, but there's a lot of value in those intermediate layers as well when it's so quick with vibe coding and so high fidelity. So, anyway, question?
Yes. Super insightful discussion, Alex. I took pages notes just based on what you discussed. My questions are high level on customer feedbacks. You see a lot of feedbacks that you've given already today on how the idea to productions. So models are evolving, and a lot of feedbacks you from customers. Is there any features that you got from customers that it's important, but because the model limitations, like I'm not going to spend much time right now because I know it's going to evolve. Just like the recent granola, the interview that customer want have an hour interview, but before it was 30 minutes, but we're not spend time on making that model better because eventually it will evolve, right? Is there any features that you think, right now in that case? And I think the follow-up question is, when do you tend to stick to customer feedbacks versus, stick to your vision that you had? Because you mentioned a lot of time on, I'm only going to be code based, I'm only going to be front end for now. Like, how do you make that trade-off decisions in your world?
Great questions. Yeah, and thank you so much for the kind words. That's nice of you. It's really cool to be here. I will say, so it's funny, component libraries in general, which is now like a core piece of our product and works very well, I would say. It was in the version 1 when the first model was GPT 3.5, and it sucked. It could not do it well. We spent so much time trying to get it to work. We were fine-tuning all these models, and I think that was a moment where we were just like, okay, we'll add this later. Luckily, it was central to our product, so we knew when the models got better, we would be able to leverage it. I think it's still kind of related to that, where we don't do bulk import right now. Why don't we do bulk import? Well, because the context windows are so small, it can't really handle a button and an input and add bar all at the same time. I guess maybe we could put it in a loop, and then we say come back in 5 hours. Maybe we'll do that, or do we just wait until the models get better? That's something we talk about all the time internally. And then customer feedback versus just our intuitive product sense. Yeah, I mean, I always like to think of what is their use case. So we notice with a lot of the hobbyists, AI tourists, maybe they would tend to push more toward like, can you output Vue? Or I have this obscure programming language, like, can you output that? And it was always very tempting in the early days to like just do every single customer demand, but just realizing like, does that scale? Is that the popular use case? We would always wait until we had at least like 5 people bring it up before we would do it, or they pay a lot of money.
Nice. Richard?
Thanks for interesting talk. A question about sort of the patterns that you're seeing in kind of AI native products. Are you seeing anything that's kind of moving past like chat as an interface or, Copilot? And that's the first part. Second part of the question is, like, are these models any good at like bringing some new ideas to the front, or are they just repeating the same patterns over again?
I do think they bring new ideas. I mean, we do use the product internally, where when we're stuck with something, like we don't know what to design, we'll use it internally. Again, there is that inherent randomness there, right, where you're rolling the dice on what it might give you. And also, I think with certain things, you don't really want to reinvent the wheel too much, right? Like there's existing design patterns for a reason. And then, I'm sorry, what was the first part?
Well, first, are you seeing any
AI native.
new abstractions or patterns for AI native products?
Yeah, it's funny. I think we're so early, I'll admit, so when you use magic patterns and you prompt something, right now we have an animation where I just like show some boxes, like a loading animation. Oh my gosh, in the earliest days, people thought you could click on that. Like they didn't know it was happening, and now no one does that anymore. We would get feedback all the time. Your animation is so confusing, and I haven't heard that in about a year. I use that as an example to say how I think people are getting more and more used to these tools. I do think we will evolve beyond chat. Like one thing that we have done actually is we have a canvas as well, very similar to Figma, where you can select a screen and then it's basically prompting for you under the hood, like the context of that screen. You still have to type something. But I'm not sure if like typing your prompt will go away, how like that would look, but I think people are always rethinking, how can I give context to the AI, right? Like, well, how can I give context under the hood without having to type it every single time?
That makes me think of something, which is that these tools are great at generating code because code is text and these LLMs operate on text. And it occurs to me that a good UX design is obviously not text. It's like the models, it seems like if we want to get to, I'm not saying we're trying to replace the designer, but if you want to have the tools be better designed, they need to be trained on good, like, is anybody doing that pipeline,
There are some amazing companies that are apparently fine-tuning their own models to kind of generate really high fidelity, cool stuff. I'll say what's interesting right now to your back to the original question is, it's really harder if you give these models generally a screenshot, they're so overfit to recreate it.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter if you tell it, hey, here's my idea, but do something completely different. Here's the screenshot. Like 9 times out of 10, you're going to get like a very close recreation. Why is that happening? Well, because it doesn't know how to do anything else.
Right.
Right.
So when you think of a tool like Google Stitch, like what's your take on that, or how does that fit into the workflow or ecosystem?
Well, Google Stitch actually, they used to be a company called Galileo AI very early on, and then they were acquired by Google. Admittedly, I don't have many comments because customers don't bring them up.
Right.
There are so many tools that the ones that I keep the most tabs on are like Lovable, V0, Figma.
Sure. I just think the thing is, so if you go to Stitch, it will create a high fidelity design for you, but it's not HTML or CSS. It's just like a static image, right?
Yeah, I guess they're taking a different approach where it's not code at all.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it just seems like it's dancing around this area of like, how do the tools get better at UX design over time, right? I guess let me ask that a better question. How do these prototyping vibe prototyping tools, how are they going to get better at UX and UI design going forward?
I do think it's like being more opinionated, right? Where right now, again, we're so focused on just getting the thing to render, but maybe in the future it's going to be, okay, you're getting rid of all the output that does this bad pattern. You know, like a lot of folks talk to us about accessibility as an example, right? Like, high contrast and things like that. And it's so painful because I have to tell them, look, we prompt for accessibility. We prompt under the hood that it's going to be all okay. But theoretically, you can prompt it to not be accessible, and it will do that, right? And so maybe it's being more strict with those types of things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard because you always have to respect the user's input. Like if the user prompts a bad layout, they're going to.
No, but what I'm saying is, actually, that's what I'm saying is they don't prompt layout. When you prompt text, it's not layout. Layout is a different language.
Oh,
you see what I mean?
see
Like I'm talking about like layout is a perfect example of, oh, you picked a 3-column layout. Oh, I would have, like that's, for me, that's still a missing piece of like, it'll pick one. And that's why I like inspiration, because it'll pick 4 and you can at least pick one of them. But I'm saying, how's it going to get better at the one that it picks being the better UX design over time? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, it's an interesting question. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to show one slide. I found a slide that I alluded to briefly, which was a design gap. I just want to show it real quick and what I see, right? And the idea is like when you've got an idea for a new product or feature, it's like you need someone to define it, usually a PM, someone to design it, usually a designer, and someone to develop it. And it's like a maturity model. And the lowest maturity model is the only person on the team is an engineer. And there's no one working on definition or work on design, right? So the UX of these is usually not going to be that great. Next level up is now you have a PM as well. So that's good, but there's still no one who's a designer. And so again, the UX is going to suffer. And then the next level up is, well, maybe the PM has picked up some UX design chops and maybe they do Figma or Balsamic or something, or maybe the front end developer has. And so they can kind of partially close the gap, but they can't completely close the gap. And the next level up is, okay, hey, maybe between the two of them, they can kind of cover things. This is frankly how Intuit was so successful for so long. Back in the 80s and 90s, before design was really a thing, the PMs cared enough about it, the engineers cared enough about it. We did beta tests, we did usability tests. And obviously the highest maturity level where we all would hope to be is we've got all 3 staffed, they're all skilled, they're collaborating effectively together. But remember back when I asked, who feels like they have adequate design resources, like 5% of people, right? So for me, that's why vibe coding is so exciting, that if you're like levels 1, 2, or 3, you can now actually create a prototype. So anyway. All right, cool. Any last questions?
The question on the map that you showed.
Which one? The spectrum?
Yeah.
Okay.
The difference between level 3 and the last level is, are we saying the designer is not part of that loop or a different bond?
Hold on.
Because.
No, I'm saying that you don't have a designer.
Oh, got it.
I'm saying that I'm saying in the organization, what do you have? Oh. And there are organizations that exist at all 5 levels, right? That's the point. And the point is so I asked basically another way to say it is, who's at level 5? Raise your hand if you're at level 5. So the people before. Okay, so if you're at 5, but then you didn't raise your hand when I said, do you feel like you have adequate design resources? What's the delta then?
That UX bubble is just small.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. There's not enough of them to go around. But I mean, for you, I'm saying you, not your company. I'm saying you. Are your team at level 5? Is your team at level 5? Right. So
one person doing like 3 roles?
No, 3.
No, three people. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. We always have that in all the companies.
I think the reason why this is having a designer dedicated and working with the team.
Yeah, that's right.
Discovery,
yeah.
Which is, most teams, like you're saying, and I think this is
there's not adequate designer bandwidth to go around. And so unless your team is like the most important project or whatever.
So like Google even have a user researcher team and a prototype team.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But most people, again, are not. So who's at level 1? Let's just go through the levels. Who's at level 1? And thanks for being on. Yeah, exactly. See, they don't have designers. They don't have PMs, right? They're wearing. This is kind of treating as people. At the end of the day, it's kind of hats that you wear as well. So you're obviously wearing a PM hat. How about level 2, PM and engineering, but no design, right? Okay, and then 3, where we're kind of covering, right? Of course, and 4, where we're covering it between us, right? Right, exactly. So anyway, that was the idea. Is there are a lot of teams. That's why vibe coding is so exciting. I think was one of the main reasons. So okay, cool. All right, any other questions?
I think this is totally useful, especially for entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons, like, as the comment was so useful for entrepreneurs. Totally. There's lots of founders that use our product. I think that's one of the reasons Lovable exploded, right? Like, lots of entrepreneurs use their product, so.
Yeah, and if you just like look at the features that Lovable is launching, it seems like they're catering to a solopreneur builder thing. You know, I know they obviously also get enterprise business and stuff like that, but the features that they build, you know, like they just launched Shopify integration, right? That's for a solo builder. Yeah.
You mentioned you have a feature where you can export prompt as code into like Cursor and there's other, all right. I don't know if Lovable has that, but certainly I can push that stuff up into Git and then have Cursor read it. What's the best way to approach, what's the best practice there? Would it be better for Cursor to see the Git repo, or is it better to give it that prompt as code?
Probably better is the GitHub repo, because you're actually creating the file structure, and you know, Cursor's doing their magic where they're indexing on it, versus the copy code as prompt is kind of more of a quick and dirty way where it's just grabbing all the text and like shoving it in. So yeah, I would definitely recommend the Git.
Okay. My other comment was, I think it's good that you're not going after like the database and all those like heavy duty core features. I think about having to oftentimes have to go back and revert back to older versions of the code. And I think it's easy to do that with a prototyping tool, but once you start building a database, like reverting back in the world of a data, you just don't like undo inserts and things. That starts to get very complex. And I think we'll eventually get to a place where these tools will have multiple agents that do very isolated kinds of things in the code. So when you do a revert, it fixes the one part of the code, but maybe not, say, like the database, for instance. So,
totally, yeah, I mean, right now it's one of the reasons our product is different and is successful, right? In that it's fast. You can literally go from version 500 to version 1 in a millisecond, like no problem.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Aren't like most of the competitors though? Wouldn't they be using multi-model to achieve that, or is it actually a single model behind the hood?
To achieve
to basically, you know, I run a prompt, and is it firing off multiple models under the hood, like sub agents basically, or is it really just one?
Well, for context, like right now, for us, it's really just one. I don't know what the other tools do exactly. Most of these tools are using like the Anthropic Sonnet models because they're so good at code generation.
Yeah. And to add maybe another perspective because I think that maybe when you're exporting to code, it may be interesting to have the conversation history. You know, like there's been a process there to get to what you've arrived at. And so the file structure is great, but it does not have the logic of why you built what you've built. And so I think that if you're going to Cursor from a prototype, sometimes it may be as important to have that context as the component itself.
Can you export the chat history?
Exactly. Like what I'm wondering is that button.
No, the chat, like he's talking about literally like we did all these chats to get to this code base. Gosh, wouldn't it be helpful if Cursor had this context of how we got here?
So rather than like the Cursor, the prompt to code contain more of that context summarized than just the code base itself.
Your feedback is our roadmap. There we go. I got to add that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Cool. Great.
I think that helps with that. It's reverse engineering. In that sense, you can ask just how would you can, if you had a long conversation and if you get what you need at the end, you can just ask, hey, give me one shot prompt that, you know, that would take me to the latest, what I wanted. And then you can put that wherever you want. So you get everything you need there.
Well, in other lines, you can say, hey, summarize the relevant points of our chat history, right? I guess you could do that, Jorge. Instead of the whole chat history, hey, summarize the relevant points. And the people realizing that when they need a new context window, they'd use that to kind of propagate it forward. But back on that, I love your questions, the technical questions about the Git. On the database front, I was at Supabase Select. They had their first event. And they're trying to do have AI just do smart rollbacks and migrations and all this jazz, right? So it's he's like making a face. Anyway. All right. Well, it's getting a little late, so why don't we call it for a Q&A for our event? Please join me in giving Alex a round of applause here.